You know, I've noticed something very interesting about human nature. I don't know if it's just Christian human nature, but it says here free CDs and free DVDs. And I mean, this is just, my wife just made these small ones here because we left the big signs over in the conference center. And I watch people come and look at this, and the sign, I mean, the sign's that big and it says free. And people will say, is this free? Now, I found another thing really interesting, observing people as they get free stuff, you know, because time and time again we always hear, you know, there's no free lunch, there's no such thing as something free, you know what I'm saying? So, if I'm there at the booth and I'm standing there and people come, they'll come and look and they'll take one. But if I'm not there, if they don't know I'm watching, and I'm watching them, they'll take one of these and one of these and one of these. And so I'm just here to assure you, I brought 500 with the goal of giving them away, and I didn't think it would be this difficult. So take what you want. Another thing, another question keeps coming back. This is only a small part of what is already on my website, BibleTalk.tv. Free Bible Media. There are over 700 titles. We couldn't, you know, get them all on DVDs. Most people, they just go online. There's also a free app. You go to iTunes. There's an app for iPhones, also for Android phones. You know, that's the easy way to do it if you've got an iPhone. If you still like the DVDs and CDs, we print these up, or we copy these for individuals if they want to listen in the car or whatever. So please, take them. They're here and they're to be given away. I think all the chairs are pretty full. So let's begin. So if you're wondering, this is the What Under 40s Want class. How to speak to the internet generation. I don't claim to know all of that, but there's certain things that I've learned. First thing I want to say is that every generation finds a way to distinguish itself from the previous generation, whether it's by social custom, new philosophies, or advancing technology. Somehow, the present generation is going to find a way to disconnect from the previous generation. My mother and I'm an only child, my mother and my dad died when I was young, so it was just my mother and I. So we had this, you know, only son, mom relationship. My mother and I parted ways at the introduction of FM radio. Her AM radio was always tuned to the AM dial, which in the 60s was CJAD 800 AM radio in Montreal. News, weather, contests, giveaways, a little bit of music, some patter, as I used to call it in the radio business, a little bit of patter from the disc jockey. 800 AM radio was king of radio. Montreal's big market, 3.5 million people in that city. But then this new type of radio was being sold that had not one band, but two bands. AM, FM, this new thing called FM radio. And FM, back in the day, those of you who are old enough to remember when FM came out, less talk, more music. And the quality of the sound was better on your, remember this word, on your stereo. Whoa, we had stereo left and right. It was awesome. So what I did as a dutiful son, I bought my mother a new radio that had both bands, AM, FM, and a clock in the same machine. It was amazing. And I said to my mother with youthful enthusiasm, Mom, all you have to do is switch the button to FM and select the station, and you get all this music all the time, and it sounds really great. And I went on, and I mean, I bought it for her. It was like I was trying to sell her on the concept. And she listened to me and listened to me and looked at it and looked at it, and she had one question. She said, how do you find CJAD on the FM band? I said, Mom, it doesn't work that way. She said, no, but find CJAD. I want to hear it on this new radio. So I switched it back to AM, found CJAD. Oh, it sounds nice. Then she said, leave it there. And it never moved till the day she died. I don't even want to get started on the time I tried to introduce her to a VCR. That was a non-starter right there. Of course, it's easy to be smug when you're on this side of the generation, I mean the youth side of the generational divide. But sooner or later, the next generation and its innovations, they catch up with you. My wake-up call also came through my children. Lise and I, we have 4 children. 4 children in 5 years. They told us, you know, you should have your children close together, they'll all be friends. And if I ever find that guy that told me that, so I always considered myself a cool dad because, well, I liked Miles Davis and jazz and rhythm and blues. I knew who James Brown was. You know, I thought I was cool. I had all the moves. And in our house in Midwest City, Oklahoma, there were 5 bedrooms upstairs. Each child had a bedroom, and they had their own music. And Cool Dad would do the moves with them, you know, when they were playing their music. But then one day, I heard this noise coming from my son's room, and in an instant, I became my mother. And I heard myself say, "What is that racket up there?" And then the words that all you parents know, turn it down. And so they say you have passed the tipping point of middle age when you stop complaining about the older generation and you begin complaining about the younger generation. And rap brought me to that point. The advent of rap and the whole hip-hop culture sent me to Seniorville in a hurry. I didn't get it. And you know what? I didn't want to get it. I despised it. And so like that insightful family counselor Bill Cosby used to say when it comes to teenagers, Dad is not interested in understanding or justice. He just wants quiet. All right. So why am I talking about this? Well, the point is that this generational disconnect over technology and social norms happens in the church in the same way that it happens in families. That's my point. It doesn't mean that families break up because of these, right? I didn't throw my son out because he liked rap and I didn't. It means that parents many times have to learn new things, new ways to understand and communicate with their children. And so I bought an iPhone and I learned how to use it, and I learned how to text, which I thought was the dumbest thing at the time. Why text? I'll call you up and talk to you instead of going, "Hey, what you doing?" "I don't know, what you doing?" You know, I mean, what is that all about? But my youngest son, William, will not answer his phone. He'll only accept text messages. So if I wanted to talk to our youngest son, I had to learn how to text. I had to get in and get with the program. He rarely even checks his voicemail. Now, I don't always see the advantage of texting over voice, but that's my 20th century brain thinking and not the 21st century reality that all of us face. So I want us to think for a moment about what this newer generation, I call them the under 40s. There are a lot of other terms that social scientists refer to them to. Hey, it's quite a job yelling over this wind, I want to tell you, when you only have about 60% of the oxygen available. I call them the under 40s. Sometimes they're referred to as the millennials. Okay, the millennials, because they were born in the 70s and 80s. What disconnect do they feel? Not with their parents, but as a minister, what disconnect do they feel with the church, with their church, because they feel it? I think this is worth examining because the people who are the leaders in the church today are part of their parents' generation, and so the same dynamic of disconnect working intergenerationally in families is also at work in the church. In other words, you think you're disconnected sometimes from, technology and ideology from your kids or your grandkids. Well, that same disconnect is happening in the church as well. And even though you're working hard to make sure that you stay connected to your kids and your grandkids, we also have to make the effort to stay connected with millennials in the church. Why? They're the leaders of tomorrow. They're the church of tomorrow. You can't say, all this newfangled technology, all these new ideas, I don't want to hear, I like the old way. Well, you'll like the old way, but you'll be by yourself with the old way. So our challenge, therefore, in the church is to find a way to connect with this generation and understand what they need and what they're searching for, especially in the church. So the 4 C's of what the under 40s are looking for in the church, and I'm not talking about programs. I'm not going to talk to you about, you got to start a project, small groups, whatever. That's not what this is about. I'm talking about elements or markers in their Christian experience that makes church relevant to them. We need to understand that the under 40s are not as loyal to a movement or a group as was the previous generation, my generation, and some of your generation. Now, we can maintain Bible integrity and our restoration ideals, but we have to be sensitive to the markers or the elements that the under 40s are looking for in order to identify with and see as genuine Christianity from their perspective. The habits that we have, the lingo that we have as brethren, over 50, over 60, over 70, is not the same thing that they have under 40. And so what are they looking for? They're not looking for anything that's unbiblical. I'm not here to start a revolution, change the way we do things, change our beliefs. Not at all. I'm here to encourage people to begin talking to this generation in a way that they'll be able to hear us. Because our voice, when I say our, I mean the church, our voice is just one voice of many that they hear. So we got to make it count. And so what they are looking for is not unbiblical, it's just not always present in our churches. Excuse me. All right, so what are they looking for? What do they want? Number one, they want connectivity. They want connectivity. You know, our usual sense of connectedness in the church revolves around Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday. That's our connectivity. Sunday, Wednesday, fellowship. Sunday, Wednesday, worship. It's one of the reasons that we stress good attendance at all worship times and participation of fellowship groups. We can't make a biblical argument that it's a sin if you don't go to church on Sunday night. Come on. We can't make a biblical argument that it's a sin if you don't attend Wednesday services. Come on, let's be honest. We know it's important because it keeps us connected. And that's important. That's a spiritual thing. It helps us remain spiritually focused, this Sunday, Wednesday thing. I'm not saying we should abandon these biblical and basic ways to connect with people and help them integrate into the body. I know that the purpose of worship is not fellowship, but in our church, it pretty much is the reason. It pretty much is the time when we have fellowship. We schedule 3 times when we gather to worship, and at the same time we connect. All right. I'm saying that we have to add ways that people, especially people under 40, can feel connected to the church on their terms, according to what they understand connecting is all about. For example, websites that provide up-to-date information on the church and its members, its ministers, its teachings. And I repeat for emphasis, current information about who's sick, who's new, what's going on today. No bigger killer to connectivity than you have a website, but you've got information about what happened in your church 6 months ago. Nothing conveys the impression of not caring or incompetence like a website with out-of-date information to someone who is under 40 looking at it. Another example of this connectivity the under 40s are looking for, a church Facebook page so that members can give feedback, talk to one another, post pictures of the new baby or the youth event. It's an electronic bulletin board where virtual fellowship takes place. We say, virtual fellowship, Are you kidding me? You ever heard of Facebook? That's virtual secular fellowship. My son-in-law that I'll brag on a little bit here, his name is Hal Gatewood. He's, I think, a genius, and he's come up with an app, a website called Zalongo. I don't know where he got that idea. And it's a family website. He even has venture capital money looking at his. And what it is it's Facebook for families. Only people you want. Nobody else can join. Why? Because that's how the under 40s, virtual fellowship is what it's about with them. We had a youth group thing going on at our church, for under 25, and older teenagers, college students, blah, blah, blah. And we had, pizza, stuff, just a fellowship event for young people. And after a while, I looked over, I try to stay out of the way for those things, right? The old guy, who wants the old guy, so I just serve the pizza and stay out of the way and let them enjoy themselves. And after a while, what do you think they were doing? Not all of them, but a big group of them were sitting around the table, and what do you think they were doing? They were texting to each other. Oh my. They were showing pictures. Look, isn't that funny? They weren't talking to each other. They were talking to each other through this here. Now, I find that kind of goofy myself. But you know what? It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't. Virtual fellowship is real fellowship for under 40s. And the sooner we understand that and facilitate that in our churches, the sooner we're going to start having a better influx and a greater satisfaction of our under 40 population. How about a Twitter feed? A Twitter feed to provide breaking news or announcements about body life. The under 40s, listen now, the under 40s, they want to know now. Not in 10 days from now. Let me give you an example of how things really work in the real world, okay, in real church. Mary Smith has her baby Monday at 1 p.m. In the old days, back in the day, there would be a line in the bulletin the following Sunday, 6 days later, and maybe an announcement would be made from the pulpit on that Sunday at worship. Polite applause. The under 40 way, the news breaks on a Twitter feed or on a Facebook page at 1:03 p.m. Pictures of the new baby are posted Monday evening when they've cleaned up the baby. Congratulations and comments are added throughout the day, throughout the week. And then Sunday, a picture of mom, dad, and the new baby are flashed on the screen along with the announcements. That's the under 40 way of doing things. And if you're not doing it like that, you are not connecting to your people. Speaking of PowerPoint slides, the under 40s appreciate modern AV equipment and usage in the preaching or teaching of the church. Our BibleTalk.tv teaching website provides the opportunity to have in-depth Bible teaching throughout the week. In the little video that I have, that we show at the booth, there's a girl, that's my daughter, and she's in a subway. And the idea that we're promoting with BibleTalk.tv is that it's available anywhere. On your phone, on your iPod, Android, iPhone, wherever you are in the world, you can get Bible Talk. And she's in Hal filmed her in the Montreal subway, and it's a cool shot because the subway is just coming, it's just coming to her station, and she's waiting for it like this, and it's coming that way, and the subway's coming, and her hair is being blown by the wind of the subway in the tunnel, and she's looking at her phone, she's got her earbuds in, and she shows her phone to the camera, and what's on her phone is me teaching a class. Back in the day, you got a sermon on Sunday. Now, and obviously mine is not the only website. There are hundreds of websites. You can receive teaching, encouragement, opinion, whatever on the Bible 24/7, 7 days a week. You know that there are 300 million cell phones in the United States. 50% of the population are on Facebook. This is how the under 40 generation connects. And what it's doing is it creates a community among themselves. So for whatever reason, we are less together physically than before. Stop whining over it. Stop having these serious meetings over it. Things are changing. It's not because the under 40s are less spiritual. They're not. It's not that they don't care. They do care. It's just life is different than it was back in the day. Modern technology provides us with the opportunity to maintain a connection with all of our people in a way that was not possible 50 years ago. Brothers and sisters, it's better. It's better. I get texts from people in the church. I get alerts. So-and-so had a heart attack. They're taking my husband to the hospital. Meet us there. It's better. We're better connected. We mustn't be afraid of using the technology that is available today and take advantage of it to stay connected with our people. All right. The next element that the under 40s are looking for, and I don't know why that is there, that slide. There we go. Here we go. Competency. They want competency. The people who have grown up in the church and those who have been converted as teens or adults have higher expectations than the previous generation. They came from wealthier homes. They have, on average, a better education and training. They generally serve in management or professional capacities more than before. They're used to higher standards. In Choctaw, that's a picture of the old building in the front there. When I went there in 1993, I was the pulpit minister there from 1993 to 2000. Then I went to California for a couple of years to preach, and went back in the mission field for 7 years, and then came back to Choctaw to be the education and media guy. So that gives you my experience with them. So when I went there in 1993, we had a lot of teachers, farmers, people worked out at Tinker Air Force Base, mechanics, blue collar workers, ex-military. That's what was there in 93. In 2013, doctors, accountants, business people, pharmacists, teachers, more education, more management type people. My point is that if the congregation is better educated and employed at higher levels than before, they're more demanding as far as competency is concerned. In other words, the church has to be as well organized and function as smoothly as where they work. I mean, it's a question of confidence. This is the new front. See, that was the old front. Recognize that. Somebody in Oklahoma, somebody in 1960 went through the state of Oklahoma and sold red carpeting and board, you know, that pressed wood type thing, you know, and every church looked like a funeral home. And that was okay then. But things have changed. So now in 2013, that's the same church. That's the Church of Christ. Is there a difference? A door's a door. Yeah, a door's a door is a door. But if you're a visitor and you drive up, you're saying, okay, they've remodeled. That's a good thing. The under 40s want to feel that their leaders, meaning elders and deacons and ministers, teachers, are as competent to care for their souls as their company is competent to get a box from point A to point B. In other words, it's difficult to inspire confidence in a software engineer who supervises 10 people at his or her office if they see a spelling mistake on the sign out front. And you'll have a terrible time convincing a young mom to attend Bible class if the sheets in the nursery are dirty and there are still smelly diapers from the week before. No, we're not talking rocket science here. This was as true back in the 50s and 60s as it is now, but now it's true times 10 because the under 40 group notice and they care about these things. Our Bible teaching and preaching may be accurate, but if we're incompetent in taking care of our building or organizing our projects or preparing an orderly and well-run public worship service, the under 40s will not take us seriously. I cringe, literally cringe when it happens. It happens at our congregation when the song leader gets up and says, well, Brother Joe, you know, he didn't know he was leading singing this morning, so you'll have to forgive me because, I forgot to get... He's giving an excuse why we've messed up in front of everybody. He's saying to everybody, we're incompetent this morning, but, you know, bear with us. And I stress the worship service because it's the most public thing we do. Everybody sees it. And our competency in other areas usually judged by our competency in that area. I mean, if we can't get 4 songs right, come on. I mean, if we can't figure out who's leading the prayer, who's leading the songs, who's up on communion, if we're fumbling the ball on something as simple as that, do you think these people out there are going to trust us with their eternal souls? I don't think so. Third element that they're looking for, compassion. Under 40s have long been aware of the national disasters taking place around the world thanks to their exposure from a young age to television and more recently from social media. Hey, I get up in the morning and I just turn on my phone and now USA Today has told me that James Gandolfini is dead. You know, I mean, that's too bad. He's an actor and all that stuff. But you know, like, I haven't even brushed my teeth. Come on already. But that's the world we live in if we choose to, you know, be in touch. The under 40 generation has been just immersed in what's going on in the world. This generation is more likely to care about human rights concerns and get involved in idealistic projects that improve the environment and that improve the human condition. Back in the day, we didn't think about that so much. They're not so much interested in correct doctrine about compassion as actual acts of compassion to legitimize the doctrine. In other words, they would certainly amen James's admonition in chapter 2:18. He says, you know, you have faith and have works. Show me your faith without the works and I will show you my faith by my works. The under 40 generation, this passage of Scripture really resonates with them. because they are much more aware of the failings and the heartaches and the disasters in the world going on today than we were when we were their age. Of course, this has been true in every generation, but it's especially true for this generation. I want to tell you, under 40s, no compassion, no credibility. You can have all the correct doctrine you want, but if they're looking to see, our ministries, they'll go online and they'll look at who we are, our context, our mission statement, and then they'll punch our ministries and they'll look down. Okay, you got a knitting ministry, and that's good fellowship ministry, and you have training young preachers to preach ministry. Oh, well, that's a good thing, and so on and so forth. But if they don't see, we feed the homeless. We support a woman's residence for women who've been abused. We take care of convicts, whatever. They're going to say, okay, you got all the doctrine right, but I don't see where your compassion is. They want to see the compassion. And then the fourth thing, of course. Don't anybody believe that the under 40s are less spiritual than we are. They're searching for Christ. Every generation needs to know Christ and searches for Him, including this one. Our generation, I really want you to pay attention. I know this is in a communication model, this is not a great communication model, okay? It's not a great communication model. It's so many things, distract the speaker. But I really want you to zone in on this, please. Our generation, 50 plus, used the teaching about the true church to teach about Christ. In other words, when we would teach someone, we would lead with, there is only one church. That's what we would lead with. Jewel Miller film strip. We lead with that idea, there's only one church. Why? Because we come from the generation that trusted and were loyal to institutions, to governments, to corporations. If you could trust the institution, then you could trust the head. In other words, you could trust the government, therefore you could trust the president of the government. We come from that generation. When I was 18, my mother said to me, now, here's what you're going to do. Today, they say, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to college, and then you get a master's, you get a PhD. When I was 18, my mother said to me, okay, now here's what you're going to do. You're going to get a job with the railroad. Or you're going to get a job with a bank. Or you're going to get a job with GE. And then you're going to be set for life. And back in 1964, when I graduated from high school, that was true. Right? That was true. You got in with GE back in 64, or in my case, Canadian National Railway. You get in with CNR in 1964, you're set. You put in your 35, you're out, you have a pension. Is that true today? Absolutely not. Well, that translates into church. The under 40s, they don't know about this trust the institution thing. They don't buy into that. This generation is more independent and less trusting of institution. They're less concerned with who is the true church, because in the end, every church says they're the true church. Did you ever think of that? There isn't a single church out there, not a one, that doesn't say sooner or later, we're the one. Hey, they're not the ones, we're the ones. Everybody says the same thing, and you know what? The under 40s are smart enough to realize, everybody says that. They are interested, however, in spiritual things, good things, life and death things. However, I believe that we need to teach them first about Christ, so that we can then teach them about the church that belongs to Jesus Christ. It's a simple thing, simple approach change. Instead of teaching them about the church first and then about Christ, just reverse the order for the under 40s. First you teach them about Christ, and then you teach them about the church that belongs to Christ. We need to teach them about Christ, who can answer the questions that every generation has. Every generation, including this generation, asks the question, is there really a God? And how can I know Him? Every generation wants to know, why is the world and my life so messed up? Every generation wants to know, is there life after death? They want to know, how can I find peace and happiness? They really want to know which religion is true and how can I know it? Do those questions sound any different than your questions or my questions when I was 20 or 22? It's the same questions. My point is that teaching this generation about Jesus Christ first is the way to lead them to teach about the body of Christ. We tend to reverse that order, and we wonder why they're not listening. So I want you to notice that I have not suggested in my little talk today that we change any of our teachings. Did you hear me say that? I have not mentioned that at all, and I won't. I've not even suggested that we change any of our good traditions. We have good traditions in the church. You know, Sunday, Wednesday, that's great. Why reinvent the wheel? The middle of the week is a great time to have fellowship, you know, shake off the barnacles of the world, refocus on spiritual things. Let's not change that. Why? Why should we change that? Every generation responds to the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and every generation is blessed by their life in the church of the Lord. My appeal is to make sure that we speak to this generation in terms that they, because of their experience and formation in the internet age, can understand. Just talk to them differently and on their terms. They're looking for the same thing that we were looking for, and the answers that we have are the exact same answers. It's just the communication model that needs to change. So if we reach out with special attention to their sensitivity to the ideas of connectivity, competency, compassion, and of course Christ, we'll fulfill the Great Commission that God has given us. Well, I already gave you the commercial about the DVDs. My hope is that this rack will be empty at the end of this session, so take what you want. I didn't do it last time, but questions, comments, you know, they give us a certain amount of time, get the material across, but anyone? You good? Yeah, sure, please.
I'm an elder, and I've always been big on the competency part of our worship service, but when your whole worship service is done by volunteers, it's not like you can fire them. You talk to them, it doesn't change, and there's families connected to those volunteers. You try to make adjustments, and you discourage someone, then you have a bigger problem. That's been my frustration.
Absolutely. It's hard to work with an army of volunteers. It absolutely is. No comment. Absolutely. Sure. But my point is, a lot of times I've seen in churches where they're not working with those people. You know what I mean? They're not giving them a standard. Look, we want you to be here a little earlier. This is what you're going to do. We're going to train you on how to do this, and so on and so forth. That's my call. Let's pay attention, especially to that part of it, because it really shows. Yeah.
So the virtual fellowship that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what's to keep it from going the next step to where we have the virtual worship service, the streaming service?
Right.
And I don't need to go. I'll just watch it on the internet.
Sure. We already have it. I mean, first of all, we're not first in on this. Hey, look, I'm talking about talking to the under 40 generation. I'm talking about using the internet, blah, 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 you know, technology. I'm 66 years old. Where's the guy who's 40 years old talking about this? Well, he's not here. So my point is, we're not first in on this. So, you heard about church.tv?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, there are all kinds of variations of it. What do? Well, what a smart thing they've done. Of course, when I say they, usually it's an evangelical or charismatic group. So what do? They hire a very dynamic preacher. That's how Pentecostal churches and a lot of evangelical churches, you know, they look for the Mr. Dynamism, you know, a superstar pulpit guy. And they say to themselves, why have 7 superstars? We got to pay 7 salary for superstars. Let's have 1 superstar and 1 knockout worship service, pull out all the stops in one location, and then let's just have satellite places where people can tune in to the public worship out in this neighborhood and that neighborhood and that neighborhood. So we got one central staff and just one coordinator person in each of the satellite things, and numbers beget numbers. They say, man, we had 2,000, we had 22,000, we grew 6,000 in a week, you know. So it's not as if that's not, it's happening around us. So my point is, we don't have to abandon what we do. We simply have to add some of the things. At Choctaw, we stream live. It's not hard to stream live. They have free services online that allow you to stream. You need a camera, a computer, and somebody that knows a little bit about these things. So I'll be there. So what we do is we stream live. And we don't have 10,000 people watching, but we've got 15, 20, 30 maybe. Who are they? Shut-ins? The guy who's working the night shift? The student who's got a big exam Monday a.m., he's got to go all out, can't be there Sunday night, whatever. I broke my leg, I got to be home. We're using the technology and adapting it to how we do things. We're never going to abandon Sunday worship. We're not going to abandon live, in-person fellowship. But we can add these things to serve the needs of people who can't come. And you should see the letters of thanksgiving and praise that we get for, thank you so much. I sat there in front of my computer. I heard the singing. I heard the sermon. I got the announcements. I even have my communion cup and everything, and I took communion with the brethren. Yep. And human nature says, I wouldn't want to do it like that all the time. I like when the preacher, one of our, what I call elder with rounded edges. You know what I'm talking about? Elders with been around so long, no more sharp edges on that elder in his character. Says, I like when that elder comes and hugs me and holds my baby and asks me how I am. Virtual fellowship can't replace that. Okay, good. So there was somebody who had their hand. No, we good? Here, then here.
With my WBS students who finished their
World Bible School.
Series,
Yeah.
would Bible talk be a good thing to connect them to?
Of course. Yes, of course. Of course. There's tons of material. I mean, we have, isn't it your congregation? Where in New Mexico?
Raton.
In Raton. How do you use it?
We get on the internet, and I introduced myself to you yesterday because you're my preacher. And we've made contact with you, and it's good. And why we responded to you, it was good audio and good video. And the internet most of the time works. Now, in our case, you need to unplug off your router, because they plug it back in, because sometimes we've had a storm in 2 or 3 days since we last used it, and then we got to wait 5 minutes, and that's when it's embarrassing that we can't pull you up off the battery.
But the way they use it, and a lot of other churches that use this particular thing that we have, BobTalk.tv, they have no preacher. Or there's only one preacher, and that preacher would like to have a second adult class on Sunday. So in the second adult class, or for the church that has no preacher, they take communion, the volunteers pass out the trays, they lead the prayer, lead the singing. When it comes to the actual teaching, they just hook the computer up to the screen, bingo, and they pick over 700 titles. What sermon do you want this Sunday? You want a sermon on the priesthood? You want this, that, Acts, 1 Corinthians, 13 lessons on 1 Corinthians, all with PowerPoint. You can even download all the handouts to give to people. And if you don't want me to do the thing you can do better, then just hit the button, the icon for transcript, and it'll give you word per word transcript of my lesson with all the quotations and all the biblical references, and you can get up there and you can preach it yourself. So that's the technology for today. Does that answer your question? Somebody else?
Your series on Wednesday night for Bible study.
Okay, and they use the series. Yeah.
Referencing the man who said, well, you know, what's happening if we start streaming and we go that way? We were trying to get our congregation to do Wi-Fi. They couldn't understand why we would need it. We had a young couple, very new Christians, get jobs on the oil field. They're going to be gone in a remote location. Okay, so we start Skyping with them. People were amazed. They'd walk up, because a bunch of people didn't even understand what Skype was. They'd walk up and I said, go talk to them. They're sitting there. Go say hey to them today. You know, and they would be ready with their Lord's Supper, and they would be able to Skype in with us when they couldn't be with us, and we were able to still keeping them growing in their Christian life, we would have lost them. Maybe.
Right. You kept the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm preaching about. Keep that connection. This technology helps to keep that connection. We good?
Congregation in Juris, Albania. They had 3 students that went over to Italy, 3 different cities, no congregation of the church anywhere, and they Skype their entire service.
Yeah.
They have their communion present, and they take it with their home congregation back in Albania, and they've been doing it over a year now.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand some of you may have kids or other commitments, so please, I won't feel embarrassed if you need to go. I'm going to stick around tearing down my stuff, so if you have any questions or you want to talk about something, be happy. Okay, last comment.
So Mike, we have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, but we're in a small farming community. And so the biggest thing might be Bessie the cow fell in a ditch.
Hey, why not?
Is that really pertinent to this?
Yeah, yes, because it's information. It's information that connects all of you. Because the cow belongs to one of the members, right? Well, that's his living. That's his, if the cow dies, he's lost some income, absolutely. Under 40s are hungry for lots of information. Yeah. Thank you for attending. Please take some DVDs.